Hey, what's going on, y'all? Back with another one. Back with another one. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Let me start something real quick. They made some adjustments on this site. They made some adjustments on this site, and I feel like Restreams is doing good. They put the recordings and video stores. If you have Restreams, anybody in the whatever, if you listen to this on the playback, well, actually, no, this is excuse me, this is a recording, not a live stream. But if you're listening to this, if you have Restreams account. If you get it like 190 or something like that, a bill, their little deals. I don't know what inflation, they probably don't went up because before inflation hit it, it was 190. And now it's probably up this go around or whatever. I'm saying it like if you do that, it's a good deal. I got the 190. I got I didn't want to upgrade because I was just wanting to do the stream. I pay it like I think I pay it like every June. Yeah, I paid it every June. I'm glad I invested in this as my pre-records than live streams. Yes, I live stream with it, but I prefer pre-records because if I want to talk on the camera, this is it. And they made some adjustments. I like the things that they added, but they put the recordings in video storage. If you ever pre-record, you go to video storage and then start recording. That's your best bet. That's a little tip if you get Restream on your phone or whatever. You can get it on your phone. You can get it on the laptop. I got a laptop that's internet based. So you keep that in mind. So, I ain't got much. We talked about Cambodia and shouts out to people that on the last one with pre-Europe. I said I was gonna do it, and it's just goes to show you that I realize that a lot of stuff that's happening, um, you're gonna you're gonna see you're gonna see a lot of stuff right here. Okay, the old Europe, old pre-Europe. That's good, right? Shouts out to y'all for that, and shouts out to y'all with the historical reference of Cambodia and Thailand. Appreciate y'all. Whoever gave me the views, appreciate y'all, and I appreciate y'all. I did my research, my stuff, and all that, and I appreciate y'all for supporting that. The ones that support, and the ones that is in the clouds that don't support. I don't care for y'all, but y'all can watch. But then the last live stream, yeah, and this, coming up Daily Dump 6, y'all know what this is. And it's coming up for you, later on. So you already know. So let's talk about I don't want to talk about Hawaii. I'll talk about that next month. I have to be careful on that one because that's a delicate topic. It's a good topic, but I don't want to show all the graphical shit. I have to be careful with that. I'm not talking about South America no more because a lot of people I got mixed reviews on that on my live streams. There's no need. Yeah, I know about the South American indigenous stuff. I'll talk about that on a separate, probably October, and explain my side. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate. I don't care. But the Olmecs in Mesoamerica, yeah, we're gonna talk about them later. To me, they're a different species. A lot of people think they're us, so I don't think so. I think they have the Aborigine bloodline, but they're darker skinned people. That was back in the day. But Hawaii is a good one. I'm trying to see what else I can talk about besides that. Let's go to let's go to Sumer has a lot. Elam, I talked about Elam before. That's Persia. Do I want to talk about Canaan and all that? It's no need, Canaanites and all that. There's no need to talk about that. I'll talk about Egypt. Probably do a series on that next month with Egypt. So we're going to talk about Sumer. All right. Ancient man, his first civilization, Sumer. We talked about that. Cultures, Old Semitic and Sumer before there was, here all ancient, Turks, Egyptians, they show black ones. And we'll skip all the racial formalities. I'm just giving you an idea. We talked about Anatolia before. We talked about Turkey. We talked about Elam, and we talked about what's the one we got to talk about? What do we talked about? We talked about Elam. That's the Persians and the Medes and all that. Talking about the Persia and modern Iran. Oh, Iran, they would say. What we talked about when we talked about Anatolia, we talked about Anatolia. Anatolia was the one with Turkey. We talked about that. We talked about Anatolia. So now let's talk about Sumer. I might do a little bit of Elam. Elam's got 5 parts. I might do that one again on a pre-record. I don't know. I gotta check to see. I might not do that again. But if y'all want me to go series where I think about it, I think I already talked about it. Let's talk about Sumer. Let's talk about Sumer. Sumer is more dated. Okay. Let me get this recording real quick off the books. I'm gonna take this off the map real quick. Okay. Talks about Turkey, Assyria, Elam, Persia, known as Iran today, or Iran. You know, I usually pronounce Iran Tehran or Tehran or Tehran. It's actually pronounced Iran, but some people call it Iran, Tehran, or all that. That's cool. That's how people pronounce it. But really, I pronounce it Iran. And there's Arcadia and there's Iraq or Iraq. Or some people pronounce Iraq or Iraq or Baghdad or Babylon right here. The original Babylon of the past. Then it's spread out. You already know what that is. Sumer. That's Sumer right here. See, Sumer, before it was called Kuwait, it was called Sumer. See, the Kuwaiti people is Kuwait now, but now it used to be called Sumer. See, Arabia was small. A lot of people don't know that. And there's Jordan, known as Mount Petrus, known as the land of Edom, known as Jordan. That's Mount Petrus, and you know that's the Holy Land. We ain't gonna say that word, but you already know Jerusalem, Israel, and you know all this other stuff. Yeah, I just said it for the why, you know, the original term for that. Then you got Syria and all that stuff, but we ain't gonna get into it. That's just giving you an idea, text study and all that. Anatolia, and then the Caucasus, Colossus, and the Iberia, Hatti, Phrygia, Galatia, Asia Minor, and all this other stuff right up in here. Okay. So we're going to get into it. We'll get away from the racial formalities. Let's talk about the Sumer culture. We're going to get into it right here. Okay. Okay, for a minute. Okay. Let's get this form. I'm gonna check something real quick. Hold on. Let me check something real quick. Nothing graphical. We'll do Sumer 1. Okay. The Sumerians. Yeah, the Sumerians. Okay. Let's go right here. Let's go right here. We're gonna take this out. So okay, you see the statue of the Sumer man or whatever. Okay, in Sumer society, I've here to the class system, but the comprise of of three tiers of the Amuku what's it called? Mashinku, yeah, Mashinku and slaves. I'm gonna read this again. In Sumer society, adhere to a class system comprised of 3 tiers: Amulu, Mashinknu, and slaves. The Amulu were at the top of the rung of the class system. Nobles, they was known as nobles, government officials, professionals, soldiers, and priests were found in the class. Next were the Mashinku, the middle class. It means middle class, by the way, of the Sumerian society. But there was also, I mean, these were the these were the shopkeepers, farmers, merchants, and laborers. Let's read this part again. They said these were the shopkeepers, farmers, merchants, and laborers. Okay. Okay. Wrong of the class system. No, was okay. Slavery. We're down here at the bar. Okay, slavery was integral part of the a part of the life of Sumer, and slaves were the lowest in the class system, like prisoners, right? And they were like indentured servants. This is classic slavery, indentured servants. They were slaves and that outbuilt their kingdoms. A person could find themselves a slave for several reasons, such as a prisoner of war. Yeah, POWs. They was known as prisoner of war, people unable to pay their debts, or people born into slavery. And this is facts. You got that. People was born in prison, like, in prisoners of war. Like, that's why the prison industrial complex exists around the world. And that goes on in certain cultures to this day. Not gonna lie. But you have to look at it like that. Now, people are unpaid their debts. People born into slavery. Husbands could sell their wives into slavery. Yeah, that was back then. They said husbands sell their wives into slavery, and the parents could sell their children into slavery. And that did happen in this era as well. However, slaves did hold a few rights. They could borrow money and own property and engage in trade, serve as a witness in a legal matter, but even buy their freedom. That's what they did back then. This is called indigent. The indigent servants, and slavery was the norm back then, but it was called indigent servitude. That's the ancient way of looking at it, and modern. We still got that today in all parts of Africa, what you call Africa today. Um, Engage in trades and legal matter, and even though they can buy their freedom, slaves who purchase their freedom or who were freed by their owner could not be forced back into slavery. The slave class did not appear to hold any particular negative or social stigma with the Sumerian citizens. They held to the belief that the person who found themselves slaves did so out of misfortune rather than any fault of their own. That's how they looked at it back then. See, this is not like, you see, America has this utilitarian society. They tell you they don't believe in indentured servitude. They used to at the time, and it didn't work. So they went to the hardcore Roman style slavery, which would be called like Epicureanism, and then you have your utilitarian cultures that have that. A lot of cultures are not utilitarian. Some were before it was called utilitarianism. It was other names, and then what you got Epicurus. They got it from these type of groups, and then mixed in. That's what you got today. Today is more modernized, so you know how that goes, and different type of people with different type of weaponry. Ancient Sumer's civic structure was comprised of largely of freemen who met in concert to govern themselves. The citizens initially held power. Decisions were made in an assembly to end times of the needs, such as a war. A Lugal, a big man, who was only for them duration of that threat. Elected only for that duration for that threat. But over time, however, the position became permanent and hereditary, the kingship, father to son. But Sumerian society prosperity was based on agriculture and commerce, fields irrigated by man-made canals, produce and an assortment of crops with the king and the temple of the cities, patron of the god. But thus the priests owned so much land, but it was very common for an average man to own property. But there was a large disparity between the rich and the poor. But even the poor, it could own their own, and it could own their own land and livestock. but the coins were not used to commerce, was accomplished through the barter, the barter system, barter or by payments or silver and gold, like they've always had back in the day, still like this today. And purchase of even in the smallest things were almost always confirmed in writing. In in a family life, monogamy. See, monogamy means two people, monogamous relations. That's why it's practiced. You got certain cultures did practice that, but it was really it's unnatural for people to be monogamous. Let's just keep it real. Monogamy was the normal practice for their culture. They're the only ones that did that. Although the concubines were tolerated, prostitution, you know how that goes, and were tolerated, and family elders often in arranged marriages. That's how it was back then. I think me and Drake talked about that 3 years ago during the live streams of one of my Friday Special Madness, you can see, or the Thursday Thrills. We talked about all that, all them long and Sunday Chills. You can watch any of those streams, and we reiterate about the Sumer culture when we was talking about it. And it says right here, same thing, arranged marriages. Part of their marriage is a ceremony, consists of the presentation of a sealed tablet. Yep. And which is the guidelines for the marriage. And later it's necessary divorce. They have a divorce system as well, were laid out. And marriage was a complex institution, which it was like you got today, regulated by many laws. Children had no legal rights. They still don't. And that's still known around worldwide. In any culture, they still don't. And their parents simply by publicly disowning, yeah, publicly disowning them and could have them banished from the community, like you see today in certain areas in rich cultures. They still practice that. In likelihood, there was an age restriction for this practice. There was an age restriction for this practice too. See, there was age restricting people back then too. Normally, however, children were loved and cared for, and adoptions was very common. Yeah, adoptions was very common. But if necessary, children could also disown and sold into slavery to repay the debt. See, summer culture was wild like that, and this statue is standing. He was standing, the king, 3,500 BCE, but I ain't gonna say the N word. I'm not gonna reference that. I ain't gonna get popped for that. But that's one instance. But then you got religion, all that. Their religion's what it was. But I had to show you that piece to read. But shouts out to Real History, Real History, www.com. Talk about world history about that. But that it's rough like that. That Sumer culture is rough, the kingship and all that. So let's see how much time we got. Ain't gonna spend all day on this. Okay, we got 17 minutes. Okay, we'll do part two, and I gotta see what that's about. Sumer religion has its roots, worships of nature, such as the wine, water, and animals. But the ancient sages, Sumer found it necessary to bring order, to which has did not understand, but it did. I mean, they did not understand, but it's to its end. But they came into the natural conclusion that the greatest force was at work. But the forces of nature was originally warships and entitled unto themselves. However, over time, the human form became associated with these forces. But the gods in human form were then seen as having control over nature. As in Egypt, figures with the human bodies and animal heads are common in cultures, but we call that idol worship in our culture. But us people that we know who we are, but the ones in these other cultures, it was normal for them. Let's just keep it real. That's a fertility figurine, 4,000 BCE of the Sumers, and there's another one, 6,000 to 4,000 BCE. This is ancient time, by the way. That's a long time ago. And you got theologians and things like that. Sumerian theologians believe that every iteracy of this cosmos was controlled by a divine immortal being, and that cosmos adhered to the established rules. The world below was known as the netherworld. The Sumerians believed that the souls of the dead descend into the netherworld from their graves, but there were also special entrances to the netherworld. In the cities of a person could enter the netherworld world from one in a special interest, but once there could not leave unless the substitute was found to take their place in the world below. But a person entering the netherworld must adhere to certain rules. He must not make any noises. He must not make any noises, kind of like bylaws. He must make not he must not make any noise. He must not carry any weapons. He must not wear clean clothes. He must not behave in a normal manner towards his family. He must not wear sandals. He must he must not douse himself with good oil. That's what they believe, right? But failure to adhere these rules will cause the person to be held fast by the denizens of the netherworld until a god intervene on their behalf. That's what they believe in. It's some wild shit, right? But that's what they believe in. The Sumerians believe that, and their foul, the four-faced god, Sumerian king, the gods, a lot of these idols and shit like that. And that's their form manifestations and themselves. And we're not going to get into all that. And this is the educational system. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Let me pause right quick. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go on mute. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's get into it real quick. So, but the temple serves a purpose, most importantly, the worship and the education. Each temple had an educational center in which students learn mathematics and scribing means writing. Mathematics and scribing, they call them scribes back then. They're writers. That's what scribes are. Mathematics taught including simple skills such as the additions of the multiplications, multiplications, but also went through the more complex such as geometry and square roots. That's common. And that's what we call those things now is algebra. Geometry and square rooted stuff is mathematics. Mathematics today is algebra. To me, algebra is not really required to do anything. That's in certain settings, but it's not used daily life. Most people use geometry if you're in sports or square rooted stuff, and then you learn the financial parts is a little different. So it's like we get it. So they said square roots. But scribing, students would spend many years in study and learn the uh, intricacies of grammar and thousands of confrum, confrum symbols. And the Sumerian teacher was known as a eunomia. Eunomia, yeah. Scribes is important. That's why they say reading and writing is very important. It's very important. That's why we're gonna read that next. And the scribe is scribe Crowley. He's a scribe. He's like a writer because that's their thing. Sumerian people believe that. And that's the stuff and then the Sumerian worshiper and all this other stuff. They were scribes and they was teachers of that culture. So whether the Sumerians was the first to develop writing is uncertain, but there is the oldest known writing system. But the clay tablets on which they wrote were the durable, and when baked, the archaeologists have dug up many thousands of them. Some dated earlier than 3000 BCE, but the earliest writing of the Sumerians was the picture of writing, but similar to some ways to the Egyptian hieroglyphs. But they began to develop their own special style, and whether they found on that on the soft and wet clay, but it was easier to impress to the line than to the scratch it. But to draw the pictures, they used the stylus, probably the straight piece of the reed straight piece of the reed with the fray with the unexpected results about the stylus. So it could be the best produced triangular forms and wedges, but the straight lines they soon as found that it was a set part of these wages and straight lines and could more efficiently represent in the words of the thoughts, pictures, least their unfullness, and became the systems. I mean, stylus symbols. But the kind of writing on clay came to call the conformium from the Latin communes, meaning wedge. So that's what they wrote, man. Like, the scribes have this stuff. You see the royal inscriptions of the Ummah, 2400 BCE, and then you got the average and all that. The Sumerian tablet with the fable, and you see all this other stuff in the writing. So it's pretty much, and then you got the cylinder seals and all that stuff. Sumerian technology. This is what they call technology back then, and the Egyptian stuff, the modified and what they have stuff, and they was around that. They believe in technology, everyday life. Established in Sumerian was one story structure from the sun-dried mud brick, and that's it. That's basically the culture of Samaria. So of part one. So we're going to stop sharing for a minute and just give you the idea that that's a piece of it, right? And we're going to I'm just going to give you that piece and that grace. So part two, we'll do part two. We're going to talk about the ziggurats and all that. We're going to talk about that. Part two, we're going to talk about them next Wednesday when I do that live stream. We'll talk about that next Wednesday. I said, when's the live stream? I know it's not this week. Okay. Yeah, next Wednesday. Y'all check that live stream. I'm going to talk about some different things. But we're going to talk about the ziggurats in Samaria part two. We're going to talk about part two, and then we're going to try to talk to part three. I'm going to go straight into it, and we'll talk about part 2 and 3 and see how much we read. I'm not going to read all of part 2. I'm going to explain it to you and just like I normally explain it. So whatever, it's like 27 minutes in. So we in junction of what's what over here and things like that nature. So I gotta say that talking about this stuff just takes me back, to my old days when I did this channel, and I just want to keep it real. I appreciate it because I don't live stream every day like that, but it keeps me sync what's going on, and I just like look at these things and just like look, this is good research and good. It's like time consuming, but it is what it is to give you all this little information, like a little something just to brush off what I did in the past when I talk about these things. See, back then it was not popular when I talk about it. Yeah, I got views on it, but this one is gonna probably get a couple of views. That's it, just little views there and there, but it ain't much. But people watch it, they watch it, right? And that's the goal. So with that, shalom to the people of Israel and the Gentiles. As always, get the knowledge and understanding that yes, they had a system of marriage that's monogamy. They didn't believe in the multiple wives, which they call polygamy. They didn't believe in that. They had their own system, and then they had divorce systems. Like I mentioned this before on a live stream with the Sumerians. Check out the Dark History archives of live streams. I talked about them just in stint, and then we go in depth because a lot of that stuff predicated to what I'm doing this and recording. So I'm pretty much in sync what's going on today, what we see now. So with that, until next time, I'll see y'all next week. We'll talk about part 2, and then yes, we're gonna have that live stream for that next week, and that's it. Sign off, and I'm out.